Girl, you always see Sam, 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 Sam. It's because Sam is crazy, said lovingly. Said lovingly. Love you, Sam. But yeah, Sam is always here. Okay, YouTube stream started. So they were wait, they just took the graduation photo together, so that's where we left it off. We are just starting to read right now. And also very subtle nod with the stress. Not very important, but it is the dress that I wore when polytrix became real in Two's company. So again, very not important, but I don't know. I thought it would be fun, and also it is hot, so it's really good to wear today. Thank you. Wait, no, I missed Celine meeting Cindy. Yeah, that was yesterday. That was yesterday, and I'm still thinking about it. I'm like, I love how Celine is getting shit with with one of the girls' mother figures and everything, as she should, as she deserves. Listen, it's either Myung or someone. Listen, if there is no like Celine Cindy one shot in the TC universe, I think that would be a loss. That's all up to Toss, though, obviously. But oh my god, were you here last night? Dang, I missed that. Austin was here for a second. But yeah, and very understandable. Yesterday's stream was later. Okay, let's get this started. So that we don't go too late. Okay. Zoe, can I wait, is that Rumi? Yeah. Zoe, can I ask you a question? Zoe glanced over at Rumi as they walked toward Mira's car, her graduation robe folded over one arm and her diploma tucked safely against her chest. Yeah, shoot. Rumi looked ahead, brows furrowing. Your mom, she started slowly. How is she single? Great way to start this one. Okay. Zoe's steps faltered. Her head turned. What? Not in a weird way, Rumi said immediately, hands flying up in defense so fast her robe sleeve slipped down her arm. Not like that. I just mean, like, my mind can't comprehend it. Zoe blinked at her. Mira, walking on Rumi's other side. Are those like leftover fireworks? Okay, whatever that was. Zoe blinked at her. Mira, walking on Rumi's other side, was already starting to smile. Rumi should have stopped there. She knew that. Somewhere in her brain, a very reasonable version of herself was grabbing a microphone and telling her to shut up immediately. Unfortunately, the rest of her had already committed. Like, your mom is. Rumi gestured helplessly, fingers spreading as if she could somehow pull the correct description out of the air. I don't even know how to explain it. She just has this whole thing, the height, the curls, the eyes, the voice, the Rumi, Zoe said. And she's so nice, Rumi pushed on, because apparently she was choosing death. Which makes it worse, honestly, because usually when someone is that pretty, you expect at least one flaw. But she was warm and funny, and she told me to call her Ma, and I almost blacked out. Mira made a tiny noise beside her. Rumi glanced at her. What? Mira pressed her lips together, clearly fighting for her life. Nothing. Please continue. Zoe pointed at Mira without looking away from Rumi. Do not encourage this. I'm not encouraging. I'm observing. You're enjoying. I can do both. Rumi, tragically, kept talking. No offense, she said, looking back at Zoe. But your dad, like, we need to do some scientific brain scans on him. Zoe stopped walking. Ooh. Rumi nearly ran into her. Brain scans? Zoe repeated. Yes, she said, entirely serious now. Because I need to understand what part of his brain looked at your mom and went, no, actually, I'm going to fumble this. Mira lost it. She turned away with a snort, one hand coming up to cover her mouth as her shoulders shook. Zoe dragged a hand down her face. Oh my god. I'm just saying, Rumi said quickly, though now her face was heating because the words were finally catching up to her. It's confusing. It's objectively confusing. I don't understand the decision-making process. Mira leaned slightly into Zoe, still laughing. Rumi, baby, it's quite obvious that you find Zoe's mom hot. Rumi's entire body went stiff. Zoe made a strangled sound. We've all been there, Mira added solemnly. Zoe whipped toward her. Mira? What? Mira said, lifting her hand slightly. She is attractive. She is my mother. I know, Mira said, fighting a smile. That is why I'm being respectful and keeping my observations very brief. Zoe stared at her. Mira's mouth twitched. Mostly brief. And I don't want group commentary. Rumi sputtered, face burning now. Well, okay, but that's not what I toward the sky like she was asking for strength from on this beautiful graduation day. Can we please drop the subject of my mom being good looking? Rumi's mouth opened, then closed. Like, actually, Zoe added, please, I love you, but I can't emotionally process my girlfriend giving a thesis on my mom's market value. Rumi looked down immediately, cheeks hot. Sorry, she muttered. Zoe sighed, then bumped her shoulder lightly against Rumi. Don't do the kicked puppy thing. I'm not mad. Rumi peeked up at her. You're not? No, Zoe said, though she was still visibly crying. I'm just deeply uncomfortable. Sorry, Rumi muttered again. Mira's teasing softened at that. She stepped closer and wrapped her arms around Zoe from behind, resting her chin near Zoe's shoulder as she squeezed her gently. Sorry, Mira murmured, nuzzling against her cheek. We love you. Only you. We are very happy with our tiny portable girlfriend. Zoe let out a laugh despite herself. Tiny? Perfectly sized, Mira corrected, pressing a kiss to her cheek. Very convenient. Great for cheek squishing, easy to pick up, fits against me exactly right. Zoe's smile spread, even as she tried to look offended. You make me sound like a travel pillow. A beloved travel pillow. Rumi's lips twitched. Yeah, she added, still a little embarrassed. What Mira said. I'm sorry if I made it sound like I was going to leave you for your mom. Zoe blinked. Then she laughed, loud and startled. I wasn't even thinking that, but thank you for the clarification. Rumi nodded seriously. Just want to be clear. Mira kissed Zoe's cheek again. No one is leaving you for your mom. Please stop saying that sentence. Right. Sorry. Zoe pointed between them, cheeks pink, but smile still there. Both of you are on thin ice. Rumi nodded again. Understandable. Mira squeezed Zoe once more. Can I get off thin ice if I buy you dessert after the after the hot pot? Zoe narrowed her eyes at that, pretending to consider it. What kind of dessert? Mira smiled. Your choice. You're off thin ice. Rumi lifted a hand slightly. What about me? Zoe turned to her, lips twitching. You're still on probation. Rumi accepted this with a solemn nod. That's fair. Mira leaned toward her and whispered, Don't worry, I'll visit you in jail. They're cute. I mean, if they don't want Zoe's mom. Those sirens are for like I'm not even gonna stop at this point for sirens, like unless they're like really, really loud, because I'm like, okay, this is my life, this is my reality. This is my reality. I'm just gonna tweet out Discord. Okay. Hi, Tegan. You're so good. Yeah, they graduated. Oh, Sam. Okay, but now I need Celine and Cindy to meet Zoe. Oh my god, their little polycule. See how that grouping works. Thank you, C. Toss is feeding us with this middle-aged Yuri. I'm so happy. I love it. Rumi smiled lazily, settled between Zoe and Mira in the booth, their bodies warm on either side of her. Warm. She was full in a way that made her limbs feel pleasantly heavy. Full that came from good food, warm broth, and the peach soju buzzing lightly beneath her skin, turning the noise around her into something gentler than usual. The hot pot bubbled in the center of the table. God, now I want hot pot! Steam curling up in fragrant waves, carrying the rich smell of broth, meat, vegetables, and spices. Around them, the restaurant was alive with chatter, clinking dishes, bursts of laughter, the hiss of meat hitting the grill, and the occasional call from one server to another. Despite that, it felt oddly peaceful. Maybe because Zoe was pressed against her left side, one knee knocking into hers under the table every time she shifted too excitedly. Maybe because Mira was on her right, calm and steady and focused on cooking like the fate of the entire table depended on whether each piece of pork was turned at the correct second. Or maybe it was just because everyone was here. Celine sat diagonally across from Rumi in the booth, looking more relaxed than Rumi had seen her in a long time, though she still had that faintly guarded line to her shoulders. Cindy sat in the middle, wedged comfortably between Celine and Zoe's mom, somehow already looking like she had known everyone for years. Stacy, finally learning the name of Zoe's mom, was beside her, laughing at something Zev had said from the booth across from them. The boys and Zoe's siblings had crowded into the opposite booth, loud and bright and chaotic. Chinu was talking with his whole body. Zayden and Zev were arguing over something Rumi couldn't fully hear, while Mystery listened with the faintest smile, absolutely enjoying the free show and random lore drops. It was a lot. A full table, a full room, a full life. At her bowl for a second, blinking slowly. Sometimes happiness still caught her off guard when it arrived like this. The shape of Mira placing perfectly cooked meat into her bowl without asking, Zoe stealing a mushroom from Mira's plate and pretending she hadn't, Celine sitting across from her instead of somewhere unreachable, and the people Rumi loved filling the space around her until there was no room left for loneliness to sit down. The food helped too. It was heavenly. Mira had taken over cooking almost immediately, like she had been waiting all day for someone to give her access to a grill and a pair of tongs. She kept turning meat, checking vegetables, adjusting the heat, and distributing pieces onto Rumi and Zoe's plates with such quiet focus that Rumi had to bite back a laugh. It was deeply Mira. Bossy without saying a word, tender while pretending to be practical, and absolutely motherly in the most aggressive way possible. Rumi watched Mira place another piece of pork into Zoe's bowl, then one into hers, then reach for more. Rumi lifted her cup of peach soju and took a small sip, the sweetness blooming over her tongue. Did you get any for yourself? Did you get any for yourself? She asked. Mira paused, as if the question had personally inconvenienced her. Then she took a piece of pork out of the hot pot, blew on it once, and popped it into her mouth. She chewed, swallowed, then smiled at Rumi with smug satisfaction. Now I have. Rumi stared at her. Then she sighed and shook her head, though she couldn't stop smiling. You are impossible. I'm fed. You had one piece, a very important piece. Zoe gave a dramatic little huff beside Rumi and immediately picked up a piece of meat from her own plate, placing it onto Mira's. There, Zoe said. Since apparently you need supervision. Mira glanced down at the meat, then back at Zoe. I don't need supervision. You absolutely do. You enter this chef mode and forget that you're also a person. I'm very aware I'm a person. You fed us like 6 times before feeding yourself once. Mira opened her mouth. Rumi raised her brows. Mira closed it again. Zoe nodded proudly. Exactly. Mira grumbled something under her breath, but she ate the piece Zoe gave her anyway, and Rumi smiled at that. Her attention drifted across the table, landing on Cindy just as she lifted a few pieces of meat from the grill and placed them neatly onto Stacy's plate, then Celine's. Celine blinked down at the food like it had appeared there by magic. Thank you, she said, still looking at the meat. You didn't have to make some for me. Cindy waved her off with an easy smile. I insist. Besides, my chef days may be behind me, but I still know a thing or two about making it just right. She leaned back slightly, eyes bright with quiet confidence. Go on, both of you try it. Stacy picked up a piece with her chopsticks first, and the moment she took a bite, her eyes widened. Oh, she said, turning towards Cindy. This is good. Cindy's smile grew. Celine glanced at Stacy, then down at her own plate like she was suspicious of enjoying anything too quickly. Eventually, she picked up a piece and tried it. Her brows lifted despite herself. Rumi watched the exact second Celine failed to hide her reaction. It is, Celine admitted. Cindy looked far too pleased. Rumi took another sip of soju, hiding her smile behind a cup. Interesting. Very interesting. Beside her, Zoe perked up. I want to try some. She was already reaching over the table with her chopsticks extended towards Stacy's plate. Mom, give me some of yours, please. Stacy smacked her hand away with terrifying speed. Zoe gasped, pulling back like she had been wounded. Off limits, Stacy said, guarding her plate. Eat what's already on yours. Zoe stared at her in betrayal. You're denying your daughter? I fed you for years. And now you stop? You are 22. That doesn't sound relevant. It is extremely relevant. Zoe turned to Rumi, scandalized. Can you believe this? Rumi looked at Stacy's plate, then at Zoe's. I mean, Zoe's mouth fell open. Rumi? Stacy pointed at Rumi approvingly. Smart girl. Rumi sat up a little, warmed by the praise and the soju at the same time. Zoe narrowed her eyes at her. Wow, already taking my mom's side? I don't want to be on her bad side. Yeah, but you want to be on mine? Mira snorted into her bowl. Zoe groaned, then turned her full attention to Cindy because apparently she had identified a kinder target. Cindy, she said sweetly, would you be able to give me some? Zoe immediately brightened. Thank you. See, someone here loves me. Rumi raised her hand before she could think better of it. And me? Cindy looked over at her, amused. You too, sweetheart. Rumi lowered her hand, pleased as Mira slowly turned her head toward her. Betrayed! Betrayed! Mira sank a little deeper into her seat, folding her arms as she stared into the hot pot like it had personally betrayed her. I guess my job here is done, huh? Zoe let out a laugh immediately, bright and unrestrained, and Rumi had to press her lips together to keep from joining in too quickly. Mira, she said gently. No, it's fine, Mira replied, already reaching for an enoki mushroom and eating it with exaggerated dignity. Apparently, my services are no longer needed. You're being dramatic, Rumi snorted. I have been replaced. You have not, by a professional. Cindy rolled her eyes, though the smile on her face made it clear she was enjoying this far too much. Oh, don't be such a drama queen. You can still feed your girlfriends, Mira. Mira muttered something under her breath, her attention fixed very deliberately on her bowl. Cindy tilted her head. What was that? Nothing. Zoe shifted closer, leaning into Rumi's side as quiet giggles bubbled out of her. She's jealous. I am not jealous. You are so jealous. Rumi couldn't hold it anymore. A soft laugh slipping out as warmth spread through her chest. She watched Mira continue to pout into her ramyan adjacent hot pot bowl, the stubborn set of her expression only making it harder not to smile. Across from them, Cindy finished cooking another batch, her movements efficient and practiced as she divided everything neatly. She placed a portion onto Zoe's plate, then Rumi's, and after a brief, pointed look, added some to Mira's as well. Mira glanced down at it, but didn't touch it right away. Cindy raised an eyebrow. There, consider your position respected. For a moment, Mira just stared, like she was debating whether accepting it would count as defeat. Then she picked up a piece of meat and took a bite. Rumi watched closely, catching the subtle shift almost immediately. Zoe saw it too. Oh? Zoe leaned forward, interest lighting up her face. Is it good? Mira chewed slowly, clearly taking her time, as if dragging this out might somehow lessen Cindy's victory. Cindy, meanwhile, just waited, looking entirely too pleased with herself. Finally, Mira swallowed. It's fine. Cindy laughed, the sound warm and knowing. That means excellent coming from you. It means fine, Mira insisted, though there was just enough hesitation there to give her away. Rumi leaned slightly toward her, her smile softening. Can I try yours? Mira's eyes flicked to her. Then, instantly, all the drama vanished. She picked up a piece from her plate, blew on it carefully, and held it toward Rumi's mouth. Rumi blinked, a little caught off guard, even though she should not have been. Mira did not look embarrassed. If anything, she looked calmer now, like the request had restored her rightful place in the universe. Rumi leaned in and took the bite, not expecting much beyond what she'd already guessed, and then immediately paused as the flavor settled in. The meat was tender, smoky, perfectly seasoned in a way that felt almost unfair after all of Mira's complaining, and her eyes widened before she could stop herself. Oh, that is good. Mira's mouth curved at once, her earlier theatrics melting like she'd been waiting for that exact reaction. Cindy pointed at her, triumphant. See? Mira ignored her completely, already picking up another piece and holding it out towards Zoe instead, her movements casual but deliberate. Zoe beamed, leaning in to take it without hesitation, clearly delighted to be included in Mira's quiet little victory. Across the table, Stacy watched the whole exchange with a soft, amused expression, the kind that lingered rather than passed, like she was taking it in rather than just reacting to it. Celine was watching too. Rumi noticed that without meaning to. Not just that she was looking, but the way she was looking. It wasn't distant, like not like before, not like the careful separation Rumi had grown used to. There was something more open in it now, more present, like she was letting herself actually be there instead of hovering just outside of everything. Rumi felt her chest tighten at the sight of it, a small, unexpected squeeze that caught her off guard. She lowered her gaze back to her bowl, her cheeks warming slightly as she tried not to linger on it for too long, unsure why it affected her just as much as it did. The hot pot bubbled on. Oh my god, that's a tongue twister. The hot pot bubbled on. The table kept laughing. Mira kept pretending she was annoyed while feeding them both anyway. And Rumi sat between her girlfriends, warm from the soju and soup and love, thinking that maybe this was what celebration was supposed to feel like. That's a line break. Yeah, something to sip while I watch the Yuri unfold. Oh my god. Oh my god, sorry. Sorry. It's so easy to click things. Just open a champagne bottle just for TC, worth it. Damn. I this is my like imaginary champagne that I'm popping. Damn. That would be a fun idea. The AI overview is just crazy all the time. Hot pot, hot pot, hot pot, hot women, hot pot. Hot that sentence is crazy. The hot pot bubbled on. The hot pot bubbled on. That's like something my voice and speech teacher would give me. Imagine what the next sentence is. I'm going to eat 6 hot dogs for TC, as you should. As you should. You should eat hot wings for TC. And you should eat every food that Mira has made in TC. Artie, please say hi to Austin. I owe him. Oh, I said hi to him yesterday, but I can say hi to him again. The hot pot bubbled on, steam curling between them, making everyone's faces look softer in the warm restaurant light. Rumi took another sip of her peach soju, letting the sweetness sit on her tongue for a second before swallowing. She was starting to feel pleasantly loose around the edges, her body warm enough that the cold outside felt far away now. Mira's thigh was pressed against hers. Zoe's shoulder kept bumping into her whenever she leaned forward too eagerly, and the entire table felt like it was moving around her in this steady, happy rhythm. Zoe's younger brother suddenly appeared at the edge of their table, leaning over with absolutely no warning. Can I steal napkins? Zoe looked up, mouth full, and pointed toward the little holder near Stacy. Mm-hmm. He reached for it, then paused when his eyes landed on Rumi's plate. Wait, who made that? Rumi blinked, glancing down. Mira, she said. Mira looked up like she had been summoned. He stared at the neat pile of meat and mushrooms in Rumi's bowl, then looked back at the disaster currently happening at the other booth, where Jinu appeared to be arguing with Zayden over whether something was cooked enough to legally eat. Can Mira adopt our booth? No, Mira said immediately. Zoe burst out laughing against Rumi's shoulder, and Rumi leaned into her without thinking, smiling so hard her cheeks hurt. Mira looked deeply satisfied. Good. Order restored. Order restored. Zoe snorted. Wow, not even thinking about it? I have limited energy and all of it is allocated, Mira huffed. To us? Rumi asked before she could stop herself. Mira glanced at her, expression easing into something smug and fond. Yes. Rumi's face warmed. Zeke made a gagging noise. Gross. Cute, but gross. Zoe pointed at him with her chopsticks. You came to our table. You did this to yourself. Yeah. He grabbed the napkins, then, because apparently he had no survival instinct, reached towards Zoe's plate and stole a mushroom. Zoe gasped so dramatically that Stacy looked over immediately. Excuse me? He was already backing away. Emergency booth tax. That was mine. Looked communal. You are so lucky I'm full of soup and cannot chase you properly. He grinned and retreated back toward the other booth, dropping the napkins in the middle of the table like treasure while everyone over there immediately started reaching for them. Rumi watched him go with a small smile, amused by the way Zoe huffed beside her like she had been personally robbed. And not even a second later, Jinu appeared beside their booth with a plate in hand and the expression of a man about to make a formal request before the council. Hello, beloved friends. Mira didn't look up from the grill. No. Jinu's smile faltered. You don't even know what I was going to ask. You came over with an empty plate. It's not empty, he argued, lifting it a little higher than like that might help his case. It has garnish. Rumi leaned forward just enough to look. There was one very small, very lonely piece of green onion sitting in the center. Zoe leaned over her shoulder, took one look, and immediately started laughing. She knew? What? I am a growing boy. You are grown. Emotionally, I am still developing. Mira finally looked up at her. Mira finally looked up at that, her expression completely unimpressed. Go develop at your own hot pot. Our side is experiencing shortages, Jinu said gravely. From the other booth, Zayden called out. That's because you kept eating everything before it cooks. Ginu twisted halfway around, pointing in their direction. I am making sure we survive. Abby's voice cut in next, sharp and accusatory, as she pointed her chopsticks at him. You stole my dumpling. I rescued your dumpling from overcooking. You ate it. It was a mercy killing. Me trying to do like multiple male voices is just not going to end well. I'm so sorry. They're just going to mix together. It was a mercy killing. Rumi covered her mouth, laughter slipping through anyway as she watched the entire exchange unravel. Jinu turned back to Mira, placing one hand against his chest. Please, just one piece of whatever smells incredible over here. I'm a graduate now. I deserve nutrients. You deserve consequences, Mira muttered. But even as she said it, she reached over, picked up a piece of perfectly cooked meat, and dropped it onto his plate. Jinu's entire face lit up like he'd just been handed something life-changing. Before Mira could reconsider, Cindy calmly added 2 more pieces beside it. Jinu gasped softly, clutching the plate a little closer. Oh, I love adults. You're one of my peers. You're one of my peers. That cancels it out. Rumi snorted. Zoe, clearly entertained, lifted a piece from her own plate and added it to his as well, like she was contributing to some unspoken cause. Jinu looked down at his now very full plate, visibly moved. I'll remember you all when society collapses. He gave a solemn nod anyway, then saluted them with his chopsticks before carefully retreating backward toward the other booth, as if leaving a sacred space. He nearly bumped into Zev, who had apparently followed him over at some point, lingering just behind him like he'd been observing the entire operation. Mini break because that was a pretty short part. What poor Artie? Mere cooking might actually convince me to step out of my comfort zone and try new foods. Oh my god, every time Mira cooks something, I mean, I remember like the classics, like the kimchi jjigaes and like the different stews, like ugh, yum 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 yum. There is a snake. There's a snake, sorry. There's a fly. Sorry. In Turkish, fly means sinek, so I mixed the 2 words. There's a fly, not a snake. There's a fly that's flying around. This is what happens when you're bilingual. You can't speak. Oh my god. The table had settled into that easy kind of chaos where everyone had stopped pretending there was a proper way to eat. There's a flying snake. Across the table, Cindy was still tending to a smaller section of the grill, turning pieces of meat with practiced ease while Stacy watched with open fascination. Celine sat beside them, arms folded loosely on the edge of the table, her soju cup near her fingers, gaze lowered toward the grill like she was studying a live demonstration. Rumi noticed without meaning to. Celine had this way of looking when she was actually interested in something, where her face stayed mostly neutral, but her attention sharpened completely. Her chin rested against the back of her hand, elbow propped on the table, eyes following each small movement Cindy made with the tongs. She wasn't sure why it made something in her chest spark with quiet interest. Maybe it was just odd seeing Celine like this. Not softened completely, not some new person overnight, but less armored, still dry, still a little stiff, still Celine, but present in a way that felt different from the years when she seemed to be looking through every room instead of being in it. Cindy set another piece of meat down, let it sear for a moment, then lowered the heat slightly. The trick is not overcrowding it, Cindy said. People pile everything in at once because they're hungry, and then they wonder why it tastes steamed instead of grilled. Celine nodded seriously. Impatience ruins texture. Exactly. Cindy pointed the tongs at her, pleased. See? You understand. I understand not ruining food. That's a strong foundation. Celine lifted her cup for a small sip, but Rumi caught the faint curve at the corner of her mouth just before the rim hit it. If you marinate cheap cuts with grated pear or kiwi for a little while, it tenderizes them beautifully, Cindy said, already placing a few vegetables onto Celine's plate without asking this time. Not too long, though, especially kiwi. It gets aggressive. Oh, yeah, all that pectin. Celine glanced down at what had been added, then back up again, her expression thoughtful. Aggressive fruit. Very. How long before it becomes hostile? Cindy paused for a beat, then laughed, brighter this time, clearly pleased. 30 minutes is friendly, an hour is questionable. Overnight is a crime scene. Celine seemed to genuinely consider that, her focus settling in a way that made Rumi press her lips together to keep from smiling. I'll remember that. Good. I'd hate to hear you lost a stake to fruit violence. That would be difficult to explain to the police. I testify for you. Celine's eyes flicked to her. Against the kiwi? Definitely. A quiet hum followed as she took a bite of what had been placed on her plate. For a moment, she didn't say anything, and Cindy watched her, not anxiously exactly, but with a small, patient tilt of her head, like she didn't mind waiting. She chewed, swallowed, and then reached for her soju. It's good, she said. Cindy's brows lifted just a touch. That sounded painful. It was sincere. It can be both? She took a sip, her gaze steady over the rim of the glass. Apparently. They're flirting like crazy at freaking like hot pot K barbecue, like joint hot pot K barbecue. Like, what is happening? Get a room. We were talking about PDA at work, and I was like, I will only excuse PDA if it's gay people. That earned her a slower smile, something more satisfied than teasing now, before Cindy turned back to the grill with a quiet confidence of somehow who had won a small, unspoken victory and didn't need to point it out. Rumi's gaze lingered anyway. Celine was still looking in that direction. A second too long to be accidental, her chin propped lightly against her hand, her expression quieter now, but no less attentive. When Cindy reached toward the sauce dish near her elbow, she nudged it closer before a word could be said. A brief glance, a soft thank you, and then that same almost smile again, small but unmistakable. Rumi dropped her gaze back to her bowl, suddenly very focused on her noodles, though she wasn't really seeing them. Under the table, Zoe bumped her knee lightly. Rumi glanced over. Zoe had her cheeks puffed slightly around a bite of food, eyes bright as she looked between Rumi and the other side of the table. She swallowed, then leaned in just enough for only Rumi and Mira to hear. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Rumi blinked innocently. Seeing what? Mira didn't even look up from turning the meat. Yes. Mira is like, my gaydar is going crazy here. Oh, this is so gay. Oh. Rumi turned to her. You don't even know what she meant. I know exactly what she meant. Zoe's grin stretched wider. Rumi felt her cheeks warm for no reason and quietly lifted her cup again. I'm just eating. Mm-hmm, Zoe hummed. I am. Very observantly. Rumi took a pointed sip of soju, and Mira leaned in slightly, voice slow. Careful, your face is loud. Rumi nearly choked. My face is not loud. Zoe patted her thigh under the table. It is a little loud, baby. Rumi stared straight ahead, willing her expression into neutrality. Unfortunately, straight ahead meant looking directly across the table again, where Cindy was now explaining how to save oversalted soup. Potato works, Cindy said, but not as magically as people say. It helps a little. Rice in a tea bag works better sometimes, depending on the soup. Rice in a tea bag? Crazy. Celine frowned faintly. A tea bag. Or cheesecloth. That sounds like laundry for food. It is laundry for food. Celine nodded once, as if this explanation satisfied her completely. That's acceptable. You're so smooth, Celine. You're doing such a good job. Keep going. Stacy laughed beside them, pointing between the two with her chopsticks. I don't know why, but this is the most serious conversation about soup I've ever witnessed. Cindy leaned back slightly. Food is serious. Celine said at the same time, soup is easy to ruin. They glanced at each other. Cindy laughed first. Celine didn't, not really, but her smile appeared quietly, small and tucked into the corner of her mouth like she had meant to hide it and failed. Cindy simply picked up a piece of meat she had just finished cooking, held it out slightly, and said, try this one. I used the garlic sauce. They're feeding each other now. Cindy looked at it. Celine looked at it, then at her own chopsticks, and then back again, like she was quietly mapping out the correct way to respond. For one suspended second, Rumi was certain Cindy was just going to place it directly onto her plate. She didn't. Instead, Celine leaned in slightly and took it from the offered chopsticks with her own, careful, deliberately so, not to let them touch. Somehow, that restraint made the moment feel more noticeable than if she hadn't bothered at all. Rumi lowered her gaze so fast she almost smiled into her bowl. Beside her, Zoe made a tiny sound that was suspiciously close to a squeak. Why does Cindy low-key have game? Mira nudged her under the table, a quiet warning to behave, though the faint shift in her own expression made it clear she was paying just as much attention now. In front of them, Celine chewed thoughtfully while Cindy waited again, patient, her expression open and warm in a way that didn't feel forced. Well, she prompted. A small pause, then a swallow, a slight nod. The garlic is better than the first one? By a lot. Cindy placed a hand over her chest, mock wounded. Brutal. You asked. I did. It would have been dishonest to lie. I appreciate your integrity. You should. It saved you from inferior garlic ratios. That earned a brief, silent look. They're so ridiculous, just long enough to register, before Cindy broke into laughter. The kind that caught her off guard enough that she had to set the tongs down. They are like freaking teenagers. Oh my, it's always like this. I love when like old women Yuri is just like they're teenagers in old women bodies. Celine blinked, faintly startled, like she hadn't meant to be funny at all, which only made it land harder. Stacy laughed too, shaking her head as she reached for her drink. Rumi bit down on her lip. Celine took another sip of soju, the tips of her ears just slightly pink now, while across from her, Cindy picked the tongs back up, still smiling. Okay, she said, recovering easily. Then help me fix the ratios since you have such strong opinions. Celine blinked. I don't know the recipe. You know what tastes better. That's not the same thing. It's close enough. Celine glanced down at the spread of sauces between them, her hesitation brief but visible, before she set her cup aside. Rumi noticed the shift, not obvious, just a small adjustment as she leaned in a fraction closer, like she was letting herself be pulled into it. Without a word, Cindy slid the dish toward her. Celine looked at it, then reached for the spoon with a kind of careful seriousness, like she'd just been handed something that mattered more than it probably should. How much? She asked. Cindy rested her elbow lightly on the table, her chin hovering near her hand, mirroring Celine's posture so subtly it almost didn't register unless you were already watching for it. Start small, she said. You can always add more. Celine nodded and, with deliberate care, added a little more garlic, her movements precise in a way that made it seem more important than it was. Cindy's expression warmed. Good. Celine glanced at her. That was hardly difficult. No, Celine replied easily, but you followed instructions beautifully. Why is this? Why does this feel? Why does this feel explicit? Good job. Cindy's like, good, good. Anyway, my brain is so rotten, guys. So, so Celine stilled for just a fraction of a second. Rumi's eyes widened slightly into her bowl. Beside her, Zoe stopped chewing altogether, and Mira's chopsticks hovered midair over the girl, forgotten. Even Stacy had turned her head now, eyebrows lifting as she took in the exchange. Cindy, meanwhile, looked entirely unbothered, her smile relaxed, like she hadn't said anything out of the ordinary. Celine's gaze Celine's gaze dropped back to the sauce dish, her expression composed, though the faint flush rising along her cheeks gave her away. I'm good at listening, she said after a moment. I'm gonna start turning red. Over freaking garlic sauce! Over Celine likes praise too. Like okay. Okay. Cindy's voice softened, still threaded with playfulness, but quieter now, gentler at the edges. I noticed. Rumi suddenly became extremely interested in the broth. Things were taking quite the turn. Okay, Rumi, at least we're on the same page. At least I'm not going crazy. At least I'm not the only one going crazy, being like, this feels like it belongs somewhere else. She stirred the broth despite there being no reason to, watching the surface ripple just to have something to do. Zoe's fingers squeezed her thigh under the table. Rumi did not look at her because if she did, she knew both of them would laugh, and that felt wrong somehow. Not wrong bad, just not wrong bad, just too obvious, too loud for whatever delicate, strange thing was happening across from them. So she kept her gaze down and kept eating. Around them, the hot pot bubbled steadily, the low, constant sound filling in the space between conversation. Celine added another small pinch of garlic, slower this time, more certain, while Cindy watched with an ease that felt almost encouraging without being overbearing. She murmured something then, too low for Rumi to catch over the noise of the restaurant, and whatever it was made Celine glance up again, her lips parting slightly before settling into one of those almost smiles. A little stiff, but unmistakably sweet in a way that felt like it wasn't meant to be noticed directly. Something you caught only if you happened to be looking at just the right moment. Well, okay, they are sweet. My brain is crazy. It's just that my brain is crazy, okay? They are very sweet and I really do like them. Sorry, I'm gonna need to grab my charger. Oh my god, come over here. Come over here. Oh my god. Okay. Dang, right in front of my hot pot. No, like truly, that's how it feels. They might be the ones eating, but we're the ones getting fed. That's good. Like, guys, the thing is that I've started to have like very open conversations about things like that, like with friends, with with everyone. So like my brain is like completely like thinking about that sometimes. Very sweet and very wholesome and totally no implications whatsoever. I mean, like, I've talked about kinks with multiple people in the last few weeks. Like, it's my brain is just gone at this point. Like, there's no turning back. Like mother, like daughter with Selena. Oh, there's a snake in my boot. Ma'am, you're in public. Positivity. Yeah. Okay, anyway. I'm normal. I'm very normal. Sorry. I got distracted. So okay, also who said right in front of my hot pot? Positivity. Why they got my lonely ass smiling too, and I wrote it. Okay. I'm back. I'm back. I promise. I promise. I promise. Okay. You think more garlic would always be better. We're still here. We're still talking about garlic. We're still here. Oh my god. Oh my god. You think more garlic would always be better, Cindy was saying, but sometimes it just bulldozes the other flavors. Celine nodded once. Too much of one thing ruins the balance. Exactly. That's why you have to taste as you go. Celine looked down at the little spoon in her hand, then back at the sauce. Myong used to say that. Oh, shit! Okay! The words slipped out so naturally that for a second, nobody reacted at all. Then Celine did. Rumi saw it immediately. It was small, so small that most people wouldn't have noticed it. Just the way Celine went still right after saying her name, like her own voice had caught her off guard. Her fingers tightened fractionally around the spoon, the line of her shoulders changing. It wasn't enough to interrupt the mood of the table, but Rumi did feel a shift in the air. Cindy looked at her, expression softening, but not turning cautious in that awful, pitying way people sometimes did. Oh yeah? Cindy said gently. Celine blinked once, like she was coming back into herself. Yeah, she said, but the word came out thinner than before. She, her eyes dropped to the table. She always tasted everything before serving it. Said if you weren't checking the food while you made it, then you were just hoping for the best and pretending it was skill. Cindy smiled, easy and warm. She sounds smart. A tiny, almost absent smile touched Celine's mouth. She was, Celine said quietly. Her hand lowered from her chin to the table, mouth pressing slightly at the corners, and Rumi's chest tightened. Cindy noticed something too. Maybe not the full shape of it, but enough. She sounds like she knew what she was doing, Cindy said, still gentle, giving the moment room without making it heavy. Celine nodded, but it was distracted now. She did. Rumi watched her reach for her soju cup and stop halfway, as if she'd forgotten what she meant to do. Then Celine pulled her hand back entirely and folded it into her lap. That small retreat, that quiet pulling back from the table, from the food, from the conversation she had been leaning into only moments ago. Rumi frowned. No one else seemed to catch it. Zoe was busy trying to convince Stacy that she deserved one tiny bite as compensation for emotional suffering, her voice bright and insistent. Mira, without even looking up, had somehow started arguing with Jinu across the table, the two of them slipping easily into their usual back and forth. Stacy had already turned to laugh at something Cindy said, the conversation shifting forward without pause. The whole table kept moving, alive with noise and motion, as if nothing had changed. But Rumi saw it. She noticed the way Celine's eyes lost focus for just a second, like something had pulled her inward. The way she drew in a slow breath and held it a fraction too long before letting it go, not quite steady. Then, just as quietly, she straightened, chopsticks set down with care. I'm going to step outside for a minute, she said. The words were calm, but Rumi heard the faint roughness under them. Stacy looked up first, her attention shifting immediately. Everything okay? Yeah, came the reply, just as composed. Just need some air. Cindy's gaze settled on her, steady but not intrusive, giving space without ignoring it. Want me to come with you? The offer was simple, unhesitating, carrying no pressure, just a quiet willingness to be there. For a brief moment, something flickered across Celine's face, too quick to name, too layered to read clearly. Then she shook her head. No, it's okay, she said, voice gentler than before. I'll just be a minute. There was a small pause as Cindy held her gaze, then a nod, easy and accepting. Okay. A quiet murmur followed, something that might have been a thank you, as Celine, are you fucking serious? That's very loud. Okay. A quiet murmur followed, something that might have been a thank you, as Celine shifted toward the end of the booth. Since she was seated on the inside, she had to wait for Cindy and Stacy to slide out of the way to let her through, and they did so without fuss, moving just enough to make room. Once the path was clear, she slipped out with controlled, efficient movements. Then she smoothed a hand over the front of her clothes, a small, practical gesture that felt like it gave her something to hold on to. After that, she stepped away from the table. Rumi's eyes followed her without meaning to. Celine didn't look back. Mini break, mini break. Wait, what's happening? I say I say as I haven't gotten to chapter 30. Jesus. I missed the smut in this fanfic. There has been a lot of smut, don't worry. I'm probably gonna die before I read it all. Oh my god. I haven't read a lot of Two's Company. I mean, yeah. The chapters also got much longer, so yeah, there was a lot. Um what's the final word count? Let me see real quick. It's almost 600,000. It's almost 600,000. Yeah. Crazy, crazy. Methinks the epilogue might end up being a little spicy too. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm gonna put my knee up because I need to do the mirror pose. My uncomfortable ass position. That's what I'm gonna toss you. The air outside the hot pot place was sharp enough to wake Rumi up a little. Not completely, though, because the soju was still humming warmly beneath her skin, spreading through her chest and cheeks in a slow, dizzy little buzz, but enough that the cold made her inhale deeper than she meant to. The night smelled like grilled meat, broth, rain damp pavement, and cigarette smoke drifting from somewhere farther down the street. Alexa, play Cigarette Smoke by Olivia Rodrigo. No, different, different. Behind the restaurant door, she could still hear muffled laughter and the uneven rise and fall of voices, everyone warm and full and loud in the way people got when the night had gone on long enough for all the careful parts of them to loosen. Celine was outside by herself. Rumi spotted her leaning against the railing near the steps, one elbow propped against the metal, a small bottle of plum flavored soju dangling loosely from her fingers. The wind tugged through her hair, lifting a few strands from where they had slipped out of place, and for a second, Rumi just stood there, watching her. Rumi stepped outside fully, letting the door fall shut behind her. Celine glanced back at the sound. Her eyes found Rumi, softened slightly, then turned forward again. Rumi walked over and leaned beside her against the railing, close enough that their sleeves almost brushed, but not close enough to make it feel like a demand. You okay? She asked. Celine hummed, lifting the bottle to her mouth before trying to think better of it. She lowered it again with a faint exhale. Yeah, she said. Just needed to cool down a bit. Rumi nodded. She stared out at the street in front of them, watching the headlights smear gold across the pavement. Her fingers tapped lightly against the cool railing. The metal felt good under her palms, grounding, even though the soju made the edges of everything feel a little softer than usual. She glanced sideways at Celine. Celine was looking down at the bottle in her hand, expression unreadable. Rumi hesitated. The question had been sitting in her mouth for half the night, growing heavier each time she noticed Celine and Zoe's mom talking, or Celine and Cindy trading dry comments like they had known each other for years. Maybe it was the alcohol making Rumi brave, or maybe it was just that she had been thinking about Celine too much lately, about the shape of her life, about how much of it had been swallowed up by grief. Either way, the words came out before she could make them sound normal. So, Rumi started slowly. Would you consider those women to be your friends, or Celine turned her eyes toward her, cautious already. Rumi cleared her throat, suddenly aware that she had not planned the sentence past the first three words. Or like she gestured weakly toward the restaurant. You know, very eye-catching. Celine blinked. For one long second, nothing happened. Then her brows furrowed, and she turned her head fully toward Rumi, lips parting slightly like she was trying to decide if she had heard her correctly. Rumi, she said carefully, are you trying to set me up? Rumi immediately looked away. The railing became extremely interesting. I mean, she said, hands slapping softly against the metal as she shrugged, trying for casual and missing it by a truly humiliating distance. If you would take it that way. Celine stared at her. Rumi could feel the look without even meeting it. Then a small snort escaped Celine's mouth. Rumi glanced over just in time to see Celine turn away, hiding her smile behind the bottle as if that made it less obvious. It didn't. Her shoulders had already started to shake faintly. I'm just saying, she rushed out, the words tumbling together now because apparently she had committed to this terrible idea and there was no graceful way to retreat. You have great options. Oh my god, Celine muttered. No, listen. Rumi lifted a hand, then forgot what she meant to do with it and pointed vaguely back toward the restaurant. There's Zoe's mom, who is single and like really. She made a helpless gesture around her own head, fingers spreading as she shaped the only explanation her tipsy brain could provide. Like, very wow, in a sense. Rumi. I'm serious, Rumi insisted, even though she could feel herself starting to smile too, because the whole thing was ridiculous and Celine's weak little laugh was making it worse. She has a presence, like when she walks into a room, it's kind of like. Rumi made a tiny explosion sound with her mouth. You're doing such a good job, sweetie. You're doing such a good job. Celine bent forward slightly, laughing under her breath now. And then, Rumi continued, encouraged and mortified at the same time. There's Cindy, which I'm not saying I know what's going on there because I really don't, but you too have this thing. Celine slowly lowered the bottle. What thing? I don't know. Rumi nudged her lightly with her elbow. A thing? That explains nothing. It explains enough. It really does not. You bicker. I bicker with everyone. Not like that, Rumi said, then immediately wondered if she had crossed too far. She is like, you guys are being gay. You guys are acting gay in front of my hot pot. You guys are doing crazy stuff. The laughter faded a little. Celine still looked amused, but there was something else behind it now. Something quieter settling into the space between them. She just wants to talk with Celine about kissing girls! She just wants to bond with Celine over kissing girls! Okay. The street light caught the side of her face, deepening the shadows under her eyes. Rumi swallowed, her fingertips curling around the railing. She hadn't meant to push. She really hadn't. She just wanted to know if Celine ever thought about it, about being loved again, about wanting something that belonged to her and not to the past, about waking up one day and realizing her life could still stretch forward instead of only backward. Maybe that was selfish. Maybe Rumi wanted proof that grief did not have to end with someone standing alone outside a restaurant, pretending the cold air was the reason their eyes looked wet. Celine took a small sip of soju, then let out a breath through her nose. Rumi, she said, voice still faintly amused, but softer now. You're really trying to make me date your girlfriend's mom. Rumi blinked. The sentence landed properly and she shrank a little against the railing. Okay, yeah, she admitted. When you say it like that, it sounds weird. It is weird. I'm not good at this sort of thing. No, he said, with a small huff that almost turned back into a laugh. You very much are not. Rumi's face warmed. Okay, but I had good intentions. I know you did. The answer came too gently. Rumi looked at her. Celine wasn't laughing anymore. She was staring down at the pavement in front of them, arms folding slowly over the railing until she could rest her chin on them. The bottle hung loosely from one hand, forgotten for the moment. The wind moved through her hair again, and under the restaurant lights, Rumi could see the tiredness in her face more clearly. Not the kind of tiredness that came from one long night, the kind that had been living there for years. And Cindy? Celine said after a moment. Rumi stayed quiet at the mention of the woman's name. She was learning, slowly, that sometimes Celine needed silence more than she needed a response. That if Rumi filled the space too quickly, Celine might retreat back into herself before the truth had a chance to come out. Celine's mouth twitched, but it wasn't a smile. Cindy is good, she said. Sorry, that was Celine. Cindy is good, she said. That makes more sense. Rumi's lips twitched faintly. She knows how to sit with people without making them feel like a burden, Celine continued, her voice going lower. That's rare. Rumi looked down at her own hands. She wondered if Celine knew she had just described something Rumi had needed from her for years. Maybe she did. Maybe that was why she didn't look at her while saying it. And Zoe's mom is... Celine paused, searching for the word. Bright, warm. She makes rooms easier to be in. She does, Rumi said quietly. Rumi is literally trying to set up a freaking old woman Yuri polycule. And good for her. Nothing weird about the throuple whose moms are also a throuple. I mean... Celine nodded once. I understand what you're trying to do. Celine finally looked at her, not an ounce of anger in her face. That made it harder. You want me to be okay, Celine said. Rumi's throat worked. She turned back toward the street. I want you to have something, she admitted. Someone, I don't know. The words felt too exposed once they were out, but the soju kept her from pulling them back fast enough. Rumi pressed her thumb against a cold patch of metal on the railing. I know Umma is gone, I know that. But sometimes it feels like you left with her and your body just stayed. Ooh! Celine went very still, Rumi's heart kicked painfully. She shouldn't have said that. Or maybe she should have. She didn't know anymore. The night made everything feel too honest. The alcohol made her thoughts slip out before they had time to dress themselves in something safer. I'm sorry, Rumi said quickly. That was. No, Celine interrupted, but her voice was quiet. No, don't apologize. Rumi looked at her again. Celine's eyes were shining now, not quite crying, but close enough that Rumi felt her own chest pull tight in response. Celine looked back down at the pavement. You're not wrong. That hurt more than Rumi expected. Celine breathed in slowly, then out, the exhale trembling at the end. I think for a long time I thought that was loyalty, she said, staying there with her, refusing to move, refusing to let the world become anything after Myung, because if it did, then it meant she was really gone. Rumi's fingers tightened around the railing. But the world kept moving away, she continued, and I hated it. I hated everyone for it. I hated people for laughing too loudly, for falling in love, complaining about stupid things, for going home to someone at the end of the day. I hated that the sun kept coming up. I hated that food still tasted good sometimes. I hated that your hair kept getting longer and your face kept changing and you kept growing because she should have been there to see it. Rumi's eyes burned. Celine's grip tightened around the bottle. And instead of loving what was left of her, she said, voice thinning, I hurt you. Rumi could not answer that. There were too many truths in it, too many years pressed into one sentence. Her first instinct was to comfort Celine, which made something in her recoil, because if she had spent so much of her life swallowing her own hurt to manage Celine's grief, because part of her still wanted to say it was okay, even though it wasn't. It wasn't okay. But Celine wasn't asking her to say that it was. She was just standing there with the truth in her hands. Rumi breathed in, shaky and cold. Celine wiped quickly under one eye, almost angry at herself for needing to. So, yes, she said, trying for a steadier and only partly succeeding. Cindy is good. Zoe's mother is good. They're beautiful, interesting women, and I'm not blind. Rumi let out a tiny, wet laugh before she could stop it. Celine's mouth curved faintly, but it faded almost immediately. But I don't think I can settle for something other than your mom, she said. Rumi looked at her, at the way Celine's face crumpled slightly, not enough to break, but enough for Rumi to see the effort it took to keep herself together. And I don't know how to stop loving her, Celine whispered. I don't even know if I want to. Rumi stared at her hands. For so long, Celine's grief had only looked like cruelty to her. Sharp words, cold rooms, silence that punished, absence even when she was standing right there. And it had been cruelty. Rumi wouldn't take that away from herself. But now, standing beside her in the cold with soju warm in her blood and Celine's voice breaking around her mother's name, Rumi could see another shape beneath it. Love rotted by pain. Love with nowhere to go. Love that had turned bitter because Celine had not known how to hold it without making Rumi bleed too. Rumi stared at her for a long moment, then slowly shifted until she was mirroring Celine against the railing. Only instead of resting her chin on her arms, she folded them over the metal and laid her head there, turned sideways so she could still look at her. She swallowed, trying to gather the thought before it slipped away. The alcohol was making everything in her head feel loose, but not empty. If anything, it was making her too honest. The words were all there, crowded against her tongue, and she had to sort through them carefully before she'd said something that sounded completely wrong. But loving someone else doesn't mean you have to stop loving another person, she said, brows pulling together. There aren't rules for how love handles things. Celine's face shifted slightly, but she didn't interrupt. Rumi took that as permission to keep going. Sometimes people's hearts are just. She lifted one hand from the railing and made a vague stretching motion in the air, like she could physically shape the thought for Celine to understand. Big enough to love multiple things, you know? Then her eyes widened slightly as she heard herself. Not like, she blurted quickly, lifting her head a little. Not like cheating or anything. I'm not saying that. That's obviously different. I just mean, like, there's room. There can be room. It doesn't have to replace anything. Her face warmed immediately. Great. Amazing. So poetic. So graceful. So very not tipsy and awkward outside a restaurant while trying to explain the emotional logistics of love to the woman who had raised her and ruined her and was now somehow slowly becoming family again. Celine smiled softly at her. I get what you mean, Rumi. Okay, good, because those are two entirely. She trailed off, thoughts slowing, then stopping completely. The word caught up with her a second too late. Rumi blinked. The night seemed to shift around it. The muffled noise from inside the restaurant faded until the sudden thud of her own heartbeat. She slowly turned her head towards Celine. Wait, she said quietly. What did you just call me? Oh, she said Umi. I read that as Rumi. She said Umi. What did you just call me? Celine went still. For a second, there was panic in her expression, fast and unguarded, like she hadn't meant for the word to slip out and now didn't know how to pull it back without hurting them both. Oh, Celine said, straightening slightly. Her hand lifted, hovering uselessly between them before dropping again. Sorry, it's just something Myung used to call you when you were younger. Rumi stared at her. She did? Yeah, the question came out smaller than she meant it to, and Celine's face softened in a way that made her chest ache. Yeah, she said, a few times, before she got completely hooked on calling you her plum. Rumi looked down at the railing. Oh, her fingers curled slowly around the cold metal. Umi. Her mother had called her that. The thought settled somewhere deep and tender, so soft it almost hurt more than it had been sharp. Rumi's cheeks warmed, but this time it wasn't only embarrassment. It was something else too. Longing, maybe? Or grief trying to become something gentler. Oh, she said again, because nothing else came out. Celine was watching her carefully now, like she was afraid one wrong breath might close the moment completely. I didn't mean to. You can keep it, Rumi said quickly. Celine stopped. Rumi's face heated even more. She turned her gaze back to the street, pretending the passing headlights were very interesting. I mean, she said, quieter now, you can keep calling me that if you want. Rumi swallowed. I don't mind. That wasn't really true. She did mind. She minded so much she could feel it in her throat, in her fingers, in the way her eyes burned even though she wasn't crying yet. She minded because the nickname felt like something handed to her from a past she couldn't fully remember, and because Celine saying it made something in Rumi loosen that she had not known she was still holding. But she didn't mind in the way Celine probably feared. She didn't want it taken back. Celine looked at her for a long moment. Yeah? She asked. Rumi nodded, still not looking directly at her. Yeah. I said this last stream. I love their relationship. Damn, who's cutting oranges in here? She is holding the plum soju. I didn't even notice that. Damn. Wise words from Miss. She's trying her best. Rumi when trying to explain Polly, I mean, yeah. I love to go write politics fanfiction in my notes. Exactly. Exactly. Oh my god. Okay. What is YouTube saying? Also, Celine, Cindy, and Stacy were 1000% flirting hard just then. Umi Zumi. Oh, no, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Listen, we support angst in this household. We do. We do support angst in this household. I'm also gonna turn on my lights because it is a dark day today. Okay. Turn on the lights. Okay. The silence after that was different from the one before. Not easy exactly, but warmer. Like something had shifted between them and neither of them wanted to move too suddenly in case it disappeared. Rumi rubbed her thumb along the railing, searching for a safer place to put her eyes. Anyway, she said, because apparently her body could only handle tenderness for about 6 seconds before it tried to crawl out of itself. You don't have to only settle yourself for one. Celine huffed quietly. You are really committed to this. I'm just saying, I know, and I am right. That part is debatable. Rumi glanced at her, and when she saw the faint smile on Celine's mouth, she felt brave enough to smile back. Only a little. Then, because the night had already opened too many doors and Rumi's tipsy brain apparently wanted to keep walking through them, she spoke again. You know, she said slowly, what was that whole you being my aunt thing? Celine's smile fell into confusion. Rumi turned her head slightly, eyes still on the street. Was that a decision you made, or was it just, I don't know, something that happened? Celine closed her eyes. Oh, God, she groaned, dragging a hand down her face. Please don't remind me. Rumi's lips twitched, but she didn't laugh. Celine took another small sip of soju, then lowered the bottle with a sigh that sounded like it came from somewhere old. I don't know, she admitted. It was weird. Rumi stayed quiet. She could feel Celine trying to decide how honest to be. It was strange recognizing that now. Before, Celine's pauses used to feel like walls. Now, sometimes, Rumi could tell they were doors she was struggling to open. After I adopted you, Celine said carefully, I didn't just want to be your mom's friend or some woman who stayed because there was no one else. I wanted you to know I was family. Rumi's fingers stilled. But I also didn't know how to be anything close to a mother to you, Celine continued. Not after losing her. Not when every time I looked at you, I saw. She stopped, throat working. I saw too much. Rumi looked at her then. Celine's eyes were on the bottle, but Rumi could tell she wasn't really seeing it. So I thought Aunt would be easier, Celine said. Close, but not too close. Family, but not. She let out a humorless little laugh. Not what she was. Rumi's chest tightened. Celine nodded to herself as if the words were confirming something she had avoided for years. And the crazy part is, I think I told myself it was for you. I told myself it would be less confusing, that it would help you hold onto Miyang as your mom without feeling like I was trying to take her place. Her mouth twisted. But it was also for me. It was a way to distance myself from you. The honesty landed hard. Rumi felt it settle between her ribs. She had known it in some way. Children always knew more than adults thought they did. Maybe she hadn't had the language for it back then, but she had felt the distance. She had felt the careful line Celine drew between them. the invisible place where affection stopped before it became too much. Aunt, not mother, family, but not too close, responsible, but not warm, there, but always with one foot somewhere else. Rumi looked down at the pavement, blinking slowly. She still wanted to be angry about it. Part of her was. But another part of her, the softer, drunker, more exhausted part, could only think about how lonely that must have made both of them. Celine building distance because closeness hurt too much. Rumi growing up on the other side of it, wondering what she had done wrong. Celine took another sip of soju like she needed something to do with her mouth before more truth came out. Rumi nodded slowly, even though Celine wasn't looking at her. The reason I brought it up, she said, voice careful, is because when I was introducing you to Cindy earlier, I her voice snagged. Celine turned her head slightly. Rumi's face started burning before she even finished the sentence. She stared straight ahead, jaw tight, suddenly wishing the pavement would crack open beneath her and give her an escape route. I wanted to call you my mom. Obviously. I mean, yeah. Celine almost spat out the soju. She caught herself at the last second, coughing hard as she straightened and gripped the railing with one hand. Rumi immediately shrank into herself. Sorry, she blurted. Sorry, I didn't mean to. No, Celine choked out, still coughing once into her fist. No, don't don't apologize. She stopped. Rumi looked away again, mortified. Her face felt like it was on fire. The words were already out, and now there was no taking them back. They existed in the cold air between them, too honest and too fragile and too late to pretend they had been anything casual. I didn't say it, Rumi added quickly, because for some reason that felt important. I just thought it, like, for a second. And then I got scared because I didn't know if that was allowed, and it felt weird because you're not. She cut herself off. Celine went very still. Rumi swallowed hard. You're not her, she finished quietly. The words hurt, even though they were true. Celine's expression shifted, grief passing through her face so openly that Rumi almost looked away. I know, Celine whispered. And I don't want you to be, Rumi said quickly, turning toward her now. I don't want to replace her. I don't want to make it seem like she can be replaced because she can't. She's my mom. She'll always be my mom. Celine nodded once, but her eyes were shining. Rumi's breath trembled. But you raised me too, she said. Celine's mouth parted slightly. Rumi looked down at her hands, voice getting smaller. Not always well, she added, and then immediately hated how sharp it sounded, even though it was true. Celine closed her eyes briefly. No, she said, not always well. Rumi's throat tightened. But you were there, she continued. Even when it was hard, even when you were bad at it, even when I hated you, you were still there. And when I was introducing you, I didn't know what to call that. The wind moved between them, cold against Rumi's damp eyes. Aunt felt wrong, she admitted. Celine felt wrong. Guardian felt weird and clinical and terrible. Rumi rubbed at her cheek quickly with the back of her hand. And Mom came up, she said. Just in my head. It came up so fast I didn't even have time to stop it. Celine was staring at her now, completely still, like moving might break whatever this was. I don't know what that means, she said honestly. I don't know if I'm ready to call you that. I don't know if I ever will be. She glanced at Celine, then away again. I wanted to. Celine's face crumpled. Her expression folded in on itself in a small, silent way, like the words had reached some part of her she had stopped expecting anyone to touch. She pressed a hand over her mouth, eyes squeezing shut, and for a second, Rumi genuinely thought he had hurt her. Celine? Rumi asked softly. Celine shook her head once, but tears had already slipped down her cheeks. I'm sorry, Celine whispered. Rumi's stomach dropped. No, I didn't say it to make you. I know, Celine said quickly, her voice thick. I know you didn't. She inhaled, but it broke halfway through. I'm sorry, she said again, because you should never have had to wonder if that was allowed. Rumi went quiet. Celine wiped at her face, frustrated with herself, but the tears kept coming. You were a child, she said. You were my child, even if I was too much of a coward to let either of us say it. Rumi's breath caught. The words hit harder than she expected. My child. She stared at Celine, unable to move. Celine looked right back at her, crying openly now, and for once she didn't seem to be trying to hide from it. You were, Celine said, voice shaking. You are. I don't get to claim like I did it right, and I know that. I know I failed you in ways I will spend the rest of my life trying to repair, but Rumi. Her voice broke. Rumi's vision blurred. Celine reached toward her, then stopped herself, hand hovering between them just like before, always asking now, always trying not to take more than Rumi was ready to give. That word, Celine whispered. If you ever want to use it, even once, even by accident, even if you take it back right after, it's allowed. Rumi pressed her lips together. Her eyes burned so badly she had to blink a few times before she could see clearly. Celine gave a trembling, watery smile. And if you never use it, she added, that's allowed too. I'll take whatever place you can give me. Rumi let out a breath that sounded too close to a sob. For a moment, she hated the soju, hated the cold, hated the night for making all of this feel possible, because now that it was happening, she had no idea how to survive it without coming apart. Then Celine whispered, barely audible over the wind, but I need you to know I would be honored. Rumi broke. She just folded forward, one hand coming up to cover her face as the first tear slipped out. It was embarrassing and awful and relieving all at once. And before she could decide whether to step closer or stay where she was, Celine opened her arms. Rumi hesitated for only a second. Then she stepped into them. Celine pulled her in carefully, like Rumi was something fragile but not breakable, and Rumi buried her face against Celine's shoulder, fingers gripping the back of her coat. She cried harder, and Celine held on. Not perfectly, not like Myung would have, not like some magical fix that erased every cold years between them. But she held on, and for the first time, Rumi let herself wonder if maybe there was room for this too. Not instead of her mother, never instead, but beside her. A second kind of love, a second name maybe, one that didn't erase the first. Yeah. It feels weird to say anything after that because that's so beautiful. Oh, I'm not hungry. Wait, what's happening? No, the losing dogs audio started playing in my head. Oh no. Wait, what's happening in chat? Ah, Claire is here. The TC show. Oh my god, thank you. Thank you, yeah. Oh my god, who did I invite? Who did I invite again? It's so easy to invite people in this chat. I didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean to do that. And if they do come, I'm gonna kick you out. Hi, Dane. Okay. Rumi blinked a few times. Let me actually check if there's anything. Salim, mama, and daughter, Rumi. Now all we need is to murder Mira's bio parents. Exactly. Exactly. Rumi blinked a few times, trying to clear the tears from her lashes. It didn't really work. She pulled back just enough to look at Celine, wiping under one eye with the side of her hand. Celine's face was damp too, though she looked like she was trying very hard to pretend it wasn't. For some reason, that made Rumi smile. Because, like, Rumi started, voice still thick. If none of this crazy stuff happened and Myung was still here, Celine's expression shifted at the name, but she didn't flinch away from it. Rumi swallowed. You probably would have been my stepmom or something. What? Stepmom? Celine froze. Then a laugh broke out of her, sudden and wet against Rumi's shoulder as she leaned forward again, like she couldn't hold it in. Stepmom? Stepmom? She repeated, disbelieving. Sorry, Celine and I had a moment of being like, stepmom? Rumi's face warmed immediately, but she rolled her eyes like that had been a perfectly normal thing to say and not something that had just escaped from the deepest, most vulnerable corner of her tipsy brain. Yeah, she said, you would. Wait. She's not wrong. Celine laughed again, quieter this time, shaking her head. Your mother would have hated that. No, she wouldn't. She absolutely would have. Rumi frowned. Why? Because Myung was dramatic. Rumi blinked. Celine wiped under her eye with her knuckle, her smile softening with memory. She would have said stepmom sounded too cold, too fairy tale villain. She would have made a face and gone, absolutely not. That sounds like I'm about to poison an apple. I mean, a laugh slipped out of Rumi before she could stop it. Celine's smile trembled. She would have come up with something else, Celine continued, voice softer now. Something warmer. Rumi looked down at the space between them, the smile fading into something shy. Maybe Umma? She said quietly. Yeah, Umma, and Umma. Yeah. Celine went still. The word landed differently than stepmom had. Stepmom had been clumsy, almost funny, something Rumi could hide behind if it became too much. But Umma was softer, closer, less like a technical label and more like a place in her chest she had never fully stopped reaching for. Rumi's fingers curled into the sleeve of Celine's coat. I don't know, she said quickly, because the silence made her nervous. Not like replacing Umma. I don't mean it like that. I know, Celine whispered. Rumi nodded, but her throat still tightened. I just mean, she looked away toward the street because looking at Celine while saying it felt impossible. For the past year, you've been more like a mom to me than you ever were when I was a kid. Celine's face changed. Rumi saw it from the corner of her eye and almost stopped. Because there was guilt there, immediate and deep. The kind the kind Celine carried like a second body now. Rumi knew that guilt wasn't hers to soften, but it was still hard not to reach for. Still hard not to hurry and say something gentle enough to make the hurt less sharp. But she didn't. She let it stay there. Not as punishment, just as truth. Celine swallowed, her eyes lowering. I know. Rumi breathed in shakily. And since I lost my Umma so young, she continued, voice getting quieter, I think part of me still. She stopped. The words were suddenly too embarrassing, too childish. That was the problem, wasn't it? She wasn't a little girl anymore. She was grown. She had graduated. She had girlfriends and friends and a life that was becoming hers. She wasn't supposed to still feel this ache when she saw someone brush hair up. saw someone brush hair out of their child's face. She wasn't supposed to feel jealous of grocery stores who got sleepy and leaned into. She wasn't supposed to feel something in her chest crack open every time Zoe's mom cupped Zoe's cheeks and kissed her forehead like love could be that easy. She was too old to want that. Except she did. God, she did. Rumi rubbed at the railing with her thumb, eyes burning again. A part of me still longs for it, she admitted. Celine didn't move. Rumi's voice shook. To be treated like a kid sometimes, to be coddled, to be taken care of by someone who feels. She swallowed, embarrassed by how small she sounded. Motherly? The last word barely came out. The night held it anyway. Rumi let out a shaky, self-conscious laugh and looked down, cheeks hot despite the cold. That sounds stupid. No, Celine said immediately. Rumi pressed her lips together. It does. It doesn't. It does, Celine. I'm not 5. No, Celine said softly. You're not. Something about her tone made Rumi look up. Celine's eyes were full again, but her expression wasn't pitying. It was worse than pity. It was understanding. It was grief. It was looking at Rumi and seeing not just the woman standing in front of her, but the little girl she had failed to hold properly when it mattered most. But you were, Celine said. You were 5 and 6 and 7 and every age after that where you still deserved to be held like you were someone's whole world. Rumi's face crumpled before she could stop it. Celine inhaled unsteadily, her hand tightening around the railing. And I didn't do that, she whispered. Not enough. Not the way you needed. Rumi shook her head, but not because she disagreed. She didn't even know what she meant by it. Maybe she just wanted the words to stop hurting. Maybe she wanted Celine to stop looking like she hated herself. Maybe she wanted, impossibly, to go backward and made the past softer for both of them. I know you can't give me that childhood back, Rumi said. Celine's mouth trembled. I know, Rumi repeated, because this part mattered. I know you can't go back and be different then, and I'm not asking you to. I don't think I am. She wiped her cheek again, but another tear followed immediately after. I just think sometimes my body doesn't know that I'm not still waiting for it. Celine's eyes squeezed shut. Rumi kept going because if she stopped now, she didn't know if she'd ever say it again. Sometimes I'll be with Zoe or Mira, and they'll do something so small, like fix my hair or ask if I ate, and it feels good. But it also hurts so bad because it reminds me that I wanted that for so long. Her voice thinned. And I don't want to put all of that on them. They love me, and I know they love me, but they're not. She trailed off, searching for the word. Celine opened her eyes. They're not your mother, she finished quietly. Rumi nodded, throat tight. No. The honesty sat between them, heavy but not cruel. Rumi looked down at her hands. And you're not Omma either, she said softly. But you're here. And lately, when you check on me or bring me food or tell me to wear a coat or text me too many times when I don't answer, Celine let out a tiny, broken laugh. Rumi smiled faintly through her tears. It makes this really annoying part of me feel. She hesitated, embarrassed again. Safe. Celine covered her mouth with one hand. Rumi's voice became smaller. And I think I want that from you. Not all the time, not in some weird way. I don't know how to explain it. She laughed weakly, wiping at her face again. I'm tipsy, so maybe this is coming out terrible. It's not, Celine whispered. Rumi looked at her. Celine shook her head, tears sliding freely now. It's not terrible. Rumi breathed in, shaky and cold. I I think I want I think I want to be allowed to need you, she said. Celine broke again at that. It was quiet, just a sharp breath and a hand pressed harder to her mouth. But Rumi saw it, felt it. The words hit Celine like they had gone straight through her ribs. For a second, neither of them spoke. Then Celine reached for her carefully. Rumi stared at her hand for a moment before stepping closer. Celine pulled her in, and this time the hug came easier. Rumi's cheek pressed against Celine's shoulder, and Celine's arms wrapped around her like she was trying to be gentle and firm at the same time, like she wanted Rumi to know she could leave if she needed to, but if she stayed, Celine would not let go first. "You are allowed," Celine whispered into her hair. "You are allowed to need me." Rumi's breath hitched. Celine's hand smoothed over the back of her head, slow and careful. "And I know I haven't always been safe," Celine said, voice shaking. "I know that. I know I taught you not to need me before I ever gave you a reason to trust me." Rumi squeezed her eyes shut. "But I'm here now," Celine continued, "and I want to be someone you can need. I want to be someone you can call when you're scared or tired or sick or when you just want someone to tell you to come home and eat something warm." A sob slipped out of Rumi before she could stop it. Celine held her tighter. "And if you want to be coddled sometimes," Celine said, her own voice breaking around the word, "then I will coddle you. Happily, annoyingly, embarrassingly. I'll overdo it so much you'll regret ever telling me." Rumi laughed into her shoulder, wet and helpless, fingers tightening in Celine's coat. Celine pressed her cheek against the top of Rumi's head. "And if someday you call me Omma," she whispered, "I will answer." Rumi went still. The word moved through her slowly, not replacing, not erasing, just waiting there, open and warm, if Rumi ever wanted it. Celine breathed in shakily. "And if you never do, I will still answer to Celine or that crazy woman, or Rumi's emergency contact who nags too much." She smiled against her hair. "But whatever name you give me," she said softly, "I'm yours." Rumi's chest ached so badly she thought it might spill. It might split. She pulled back just enough to look at Celine, face wet, eyes searching for hers. "Don't say that if you don't mean it." Celine's expression steadied. "I mean it." Rumi stared at her for a long moment. Then she nodded, small and trembling. "Okay," she whispered. Celine lifted a hand, brushing Rumi's hair back from her damp cheek with such careful tenderness that Rumi almost started crying again for a completely different reason. "My Umi," Celine murmured. Rumi's face crumpled, but she smiled anyway. "Okay," she said again, softer this time. Behind them, the restaurant door opened, spilling warmth and noise into the night. Zoe's voice called out, bright and unconcerned. "Rumi? Miss Celine? Are you two alive out here?" Rumi and Celine both froze. Then Rumi let out a broken little laugh against Celine's shoulder as Celine looked down at her, brows lifting faintly. "Miss Celine?" Rumi groaned, wiping her face fast. "Don't." Celine's mouth twitched at that. "Oh, I'm keeping that." "Please don't." "Oh, I absolutely am." Rumi hid her face in her hands, mortified and smiling despite herself. And when Celine's arm stayed around her shoulders, warm and certain in the cold, Rumi didn't move away. Whew, that was long. Did I run out? No, I have water. My water bottle. Zoe literally coming to save us from the mother angst. Ah, don't fall. No, you're not falling. Mm-mm. That's her baby. That's her baby. I knew someone was gonna make a 6-7 joke. And that's why I did not look at the chat at all. I knew someone was gonna make a joke. Oh, Dane, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, sending you healing vibes. And it's okay. It's always okay. Emotional angst survivors. Thank you, Artie. I feel like I'm swimming, Rumi muttered into the pillow. Her words came out muffled, half swallowed by the fabric, but Zoe still giggled beside her. Well, Zoe said, voice warm and close. You had quite a lot to drink. Rumi hummed like that was a reasonable explanation, but not one she was fully willing to accept. Her whole body felt heavy in the best and worst way, limbs loose, skin warm, thoughts drifting around too slowly to catch. Every time she closed her eyes, the room seemed to sway a little, but it wasn't enough to make her sick. Zoe's lips pressed against the side of her neck. Rumi shivered faintly, then sighed, sinking deeper into the mattress. Mira climbed onto the bed from the other side, the mattress dipping under her weight. Her hand found Rumi's back almost immediately, palm warm through the thin fabric of Rumi's shirt. Did you drink enough water? Mira asked, rubbing slow circles between her shoulders. Rumi nodded into his pillow. How much is Mm-hmm. Sorry, it was mm-hmm. How much mm-hmm. Rumi thought about that seriously for a second. Then she said, a water amount. Zoe snorted against her neck. Mira sighed. That tells me nothing. It tells you I did water. You did water. Rumi nodded again, more confidently this time. Successfully. Zoe laughed softly and wrapped an arm around Rumi's waist, pressing herself closer. She did have a glass before we left. Half a glass, Mira corrected. It was a committed half. Mira's hand stilled on Rumi's back for a second, then resumed rubbing. I'm making you drink more in the morning. Rumi gave a tiny groan. That's future Rumi's that's future Rumi's problem, Zoe whispered. Mira leaned over just enough for Rumi to feel her presence closer. Future Rumi is still my problem. Rumi's mouth twitched against the pillow. It was too much work to smile properly, but she felt it anyway. Warm, loved, pinned between them in a way that made the room stop shifting so much. For a while, none of them said anything. Zoe kept her face tucked into the curve of Rumi's neck, breathing softly against her skin, and Mira kept rubbing her back in those slow, steady circles that made her extra sleepy. Then Zoe's fingers tightened lightly at her waist. You guys were out there for a while, she said after a minute, her voice quieter now. What were you and Celine talking about? Rumi's eyes stayed closed. She was okay? Zoe added. She was fine, she mumbled. Mostly. I think she just got a little spooked, Rumi continued, voice thick with sleep and soju. Spooked from mentioning her dead situationship, who she's still in love with, to the person she was practically flirting with the whole night. Silence. Then Zoe lifted her head. Whoa. Whoa. Rumi's eyes cracked open slightly, though all she could see was the blurry shape of the pillow and Zoe's hair near her cheek. Yeah, Mira muttered from the other side. Whoa. A short pause. Still can't believe Cindy swings that way. Right? Zoe whispered. I mean, what were you expecting? Cindy is like so typical lesbian to me. Like, I read Cindy the first time and I was like, oh, that's a lesbian. Mira, I thought you had a good gaydar. Right? Zoe whispered, like this was the most shocking part of the entire night. I thought she just had that cool pottery lady energy. Mira glanced at her. Cool pottery lady energy can be gay. That is true. Rumi's lips twitched again. She had vibes, Rumi muttered. Thank you, Rumi. Thank you. Thank you. We have some brain cells among the three of you. Some gaydar. Zoe immediately perked. You noticed too? Rumi buried her face deeper into the pillow. Everyone noticed. I don't think my mom noticed. She was busy guarding her meat from you, Mira said. Zoe made a noise of offense. That was one time. You tried 3 times. I was testing maternal generosity. You failed. Rumi made a sleepy sound at a thought while Zoe's lips brushed her neck again. What? Wait, what? Nothing. That sounded like something. It's a secret nothing. Wait, sorry. Who? Wait, what? Wait, who is speaking? I got confused again. I got confused again. You feel Rumi made a sleepy sound at a thought while Zoe's lips brushed her neck again. What? Nothing. That sounded like a something. It's a secret nothing. Yeah. Rumi's eyes opened a sliver. She had said that out loud. Oh, secret nothing? Mira repeated slowly. Rumi's face warmed against the pillow. No. Zoe lifted her head again, interest immediately sharpening through her sleepiness. No? I said regular nothing. You absolutely said secret nothing. I'm drunk. That makes you more honest. It makes me less grammar. Mira snorted. Zoe's fingers danced slightly at Rumi's waist. What's the secret? Rumi groaned, trying to curl away, but she was trapped between them and too tired to do anything about it. No secrets, she mumbled. That is exactly what someone with secrets would say. Zoe. Zoe giggled, but her touch stayed gentle. Okay, okay. I won't bully the sleepy drunk girl. Thank you. For now. Rumi huffed into the pillow. Mira leaned closer, voice low near Rumi's ear. Should we be worried about the secret nothing? Her throat went tight. No, she whispered. Something in her tone must have shifted because Mira's hand softened on her back. Zoe went quiet too. Rumi swallowed. It's a good secret, she said, barely audible. Neither of them answered right away. Then Zoe kissed her cheek, slow and soft. Okay, she whispered. Mira's hand moved up to the back of Rumi's head, fingers brushing through her hair once. Then we'll wait. Rumi closed her eyes. The tears came suddenly, just a tiny burn behind her lashes, but they didn't fall. They'll wait. Of course they would. That was the dangerous thing about them, the thing that undid her every time. They kept making room on couches, in beds, at tables, in their lives. They kept giving her space to arrive at her own pace, then smiling like she hadn't been late at all. Rumi turned her face into the pillow again before either of them could see too much. You falling asleep? Mira asked after a while, poking her back lightly. A small groan answered her. Zoe smiled against Rumi's shoulder. Oh, she definitely is. I am awake, Rumi muttered. Sure, baby. Sure, baby. Very awake. Mira's fingers traced lazily along her spine. Name 3 things in the room. Rumi frowned against the pillow. Bed. Good. Girlfriend. Zoe giggled. Mira's voice warmed. Singular. Girlfriends. Zoe made a soft, delighted sound and squeezed her. And third, Rumi took too long to answer. Her thoughts moved slowly through the room, brushing over the dresser, the lamp, Nimbus somewhere at the foot of the bed, the clothes folded on the chair, the hidden bag in the other room of her life. Home, she whispered. Not the apartment, not just the bed. Them. This whole strange, messy, impossible life that had somehow gathered around her and refused to let her disappear into the corners. Yeah, Mira murmured. Home. Zoe pressed her face into Rumi's shoulder, holding her tighter. Our home. Rumi's chest hurt, but it was the good kind. She drifted there, suspended between their voices and their warmth, between the light behind her and whatever came next. The chapter of graduation had ended somewhere between the restaurant and the bed, between the railing outside and the secret, between Celine's arms and Zoe's laughter, and Mira's hands feeding her like love was something that that could be placed carefully into a bowl. Rumi thought, distantly, that she should say something. Maybe I love you. Maybe thank you. Maybe don't let me forget this. But her mouth wouldn't move, and maybe that was okay too. Zoe kissed the side of her head. Mira pulled the blanket higher over all three of them. The room went quiet. Rumi's breathing slowed. Just before sleep took her fully, she felt Mira's fingers brush her hair back from her face and heard Zoe whisper something too soft to catch. It didn't matter. The meaning reached her anyway. She slept with her body tucked safely between theirs, peach soju warm in her blood, her heart full and aching, and the future carefully mapped out in her mind. We're already at the bonus? That's crazy. Oh my god. What the fuck? What the fuck? That shouldn't be allowed. What? It's only been 2 hours. It's a good secret. I love playing the drunk polytrix. Celine, the mother who stepped up, then tripped, fell off the cliff, dragged Rumi off the edge with her, sat around crying for a few years, then took the scenic route to get back to the top. But got there eventually. Yeah. Again, that's why I love her arc so much. Like it's like she truly like starts off unpleasant. And it's like she's human. She is human. Hello, Alyssa. And that's bed, girlfriend, other girlfriend. That's what I was thinking. If I was Rumi and said girlfriends, and Mira was like, okay, one more, and I would be like, but I said three things already. Ah. Pottery lessons with Celine one. Cindy teaching Celine pottery and Celine teaching Cindy wood carving. Date idea. Oh. Oh. Four things is way too many. They're handsy, all right? Say that shit. You wrote them. Oh. Bonus. Rumi shut the door. Sorry, I'll be normal. Rumi shut the door behind her as quietly as she could, one hand still wrapped around the handles of the little bag she had folded carefully against her stomach. Familiar voices and the rich smell of spices drifting from the kitchen greeted her mouth immediately starting to water before she could help it. Nimbus appeared almost instantly, slipping around the corner like she had been personally notified of her arrival. His tail flicked up happily as he wove between her legs, brushing against her ankles with a soft chirp. Rumi smiled despite the anxious flutter in her chest. Hi, baby, she murmured, bending down carefully so she wouldn't crush the bag in her hands. She ran her fingers over Nimbus's back, smiling when he arched into the touch like he had been tragically neglected for years instead of maybe 2 hours. Rumi, that you? Zoe's voice floated from the living room, close enough that Rumi knew she was probably curled up on the couch, the sound of it making Rumi's heart kick up a notch. No, Rumi called back, trying to sound normal. I'm actually an intruder. Don't mind me. Zoe giggled. Well, intruder, Mira added, voice smooth from the living room. Your ramyun is on the counter. Miso, your favorite. Ruby smiled to herself and walked farther inside. She made her way into the kitchen, placed the bag carefully on the counter, then immediately grabbed a bowl and served herself some ramyun from the big container. She glanced over toward the couch while she added the noodles into her bowl. Mira and Zoe were sitting close together, bowls in hand, both turned partly toward the TV. Zoe had one leg tucked beneath her, and the other stretched out along the cushion, her cheeks flushed slightly for spice. Mira sat next to her, chopsticks held neatly in one hand, expression almost too calm for someone eating something that was definitely hot enough to be considered self inducing torture. I'm surprised you can handle the spice now, Mira hummed, glancing at Zoe with something like approval. Full circle! Zoe immediately straightened, smirking as she thumped the top of her chest with her fist. Oh no, it still burns, she said confidently. I am totally dying inside. I've just evolved. I'm better at hiding it now. Mira's eyes dropped to Zoe's bowl, then to Zoe's face. You're sweating. Zoe paused. That's part of the disguise. Rumi snorted softly as she reached for her bowl. For a second, everything was so normal that Rumi almost forgot the bag. Almost. Rumi put her bowl down so quickly a little broth sloshed near the rim. Nope, absolutely not. She snatched the bag off the counter, clutching it against her chest, and walked out of the kitchen, her pace measured and calm, even though her heart was beating like she had just committed a felony. She made it approximately 3 steps down the hall before her self control snapped. The secret? Just one look. One tiny look. She knew she shouldn't. She knew she had already looked at them at the store. And then again at the elevator. Their rings. Oh, their rings, right? Or something. Like, because they already have rings, technically. They are like, okay. She knew she shouldn't. She knew she had already looked at them at the store, and then again in the elevator, and then once more outside the apartment door like a complete lunatic. But apparently, knowing did nothing to stop her hands. Rumi opened the bag just enough to peek inside. 2 small black velvet boxes sat nestled at the bottom. Her breath caught. They were still there. Good. Her fingers tightened around the bag handles until the paper crinkled softly. She had bought them. She had actually bought them. I mean, we knew this would happen. A strange, dizzy feeling rose through her chest, bigger than nerves, bigger than excitement. It was terrifying how small the boxes looked compared to what they meant. 2 little squares of velvet, and suddenly her whole future felt like it was sitting in a paper bag from a jewelry store, waiting her to be brave enough to say something. Rumi slowed without meaning to, her heart hammering. She reached in carefully and picked up one of the boxes, flipping the top open with her thumb. The ring caught the hallway light immediately, glimmering back at her like it had been waiting. Rumi swallowed hard. It was beautiful. The kind of beautiful that made her second guess herself all over again. Because what if it was too much? What if it wasn't enough? What if Mira thought the design was wrong? What if Zoe cried so hard she couldn't even answer? What if they both stared at her and Rumi forgot every word she had practiced? What if they said yes? That thought was the worst one, the best one, the one that made her knees feel strange. Later, she promised herself. This was for the time was this was for when the time was right, sometime later. Rumi? Rumi jumped so hard she nearly dropped the box. Her entire soul left her body. She snapped it shut with a tiny, guilty click and shoved it back into the bag so fast the velvet scraped against the paper. Then she turned around, face burning, heart climbing directly into her throat. Zoe was twisted around the Zoe was twisted around on the couch, looking over the back of it at her. Yes, Rumi said. It came out too high. Zoe's brows furrowed slightly. Mira was looking at her oddly, too. Chopsticks paused halfway to her mouth, eyes flicking from Rumi's face to the bag in her hand, and then back again. Rumi's skin felt hot. They knew. They absolutely knew. There was no way they didn't know. She looked guilty. She felt guilty. She was holding the bag like it contained classified government documents. Maybe the box had made a sound. Maybe they saw the velvet. Maybe Zoe had supernaturally sensed jewelry because love made her psychic now. Where are you going? Zoe asked. Rumi blinked, but something about the question landed strangely. Where are you going? Rumi's fingers loosened around the bag, the words tugging at something buried deep in her mind. A sudden, uncanny feeling passed through her so quickly she couldn't fully catch it, but it left a warmth behind. A strange ache, too, soft and deep beneath her ribs. Rumi blinked. Right. Question, bag, rings. Rumi straightened, lifting the bag slightly like that explained everything. To, she cleared her throat, to go put this in my room. What is it? Mira asked. Not suspicious exactly, just curious in that casual way that made Rumi want to throw herself through the nearest window. Stuff? Rumi said immediately. Mira's brow lifted. Rumi wanted to bite her own tongue off. Stuff? That was the best she had? Stuff, Mira repeated. Mm-hmm. Rumi nodded, too stiffly. Personal stuff. Zoe's eyebrows lifted, interest sparking in her eyes. Oh? No, Rumi said quickly. Not like that. Zoe grinned. Mira's mouth curved slightly. Oh my god. Your live is not eligible for mental health? What did I even say? What did I even say? Oh, TikTok, the bane of my existence. Anyway, um, Mira's mouth curved slightly. Rumi's face burned hotter. I mean, just things, normal things, room things for my room. There was a brief silence, and she glanced between them again. Zoe leaning over the couch, Mira watching quietly beside her. Both of them looking at Rumi like her walking away was something worth asking about. A small smile slipped out of her before she could stop it. Zoe softened instantly. What? What? Wait. What? Wait. Rumi blinked a few times, then smiled faintly. Sorry, she said. It's just, whoa, I got a weird sense of deja vu. Zoe straightened a little. Really? Mira lowered her bowl, curiosity replacing suspicion. Do you know from what? Rumi slowly shook her head. No, she said. I just feel like I already experienced this exact moment before. She looked down at the bag again, her thumb brushing over the folded edge. Weird. Mira studied her for another beat, like she didn't entirely believe her, but she let it go. Well, Zoe said brightly, leaning farther over the back of the couch. Hurry up and put your mysterious room stuff away, then come eat with us. I'm picking a movie tonight. Rumi's chest squeezed. There it was again, that strange little echo. She swallowed around it, smiling before she could help herself. Okay. She turned and continued toward her room, smiling to herself. Once she slipped inside, she shut the door behind her, leaning against it for a moment with the bag pressing carefully to her chest. Her heart was still racing. Rumi looked down at the bag and let out a shaky breath, the faint smile still on her face. Then she crossed the room and hid it somewhere safe. Secret safe, for now. She pulled out her phone, biting her lip slightly as she opened her trusty friend Google to make a quick search. What are the top 10 best proposal ideas? Very cute. Very, very cute. Probably thinking about when she was first moving into the apartment. Probably that's what I thought, but also I love soulmates. So I was like, maybe it's deja vu from a different life. Because I'm very cheesy like that. Did you manage to remember the magnets, Hardy? No, I didn't. The magnets, the magnets, the magnets. Was it was it the magnets? The magnets. There's like, is it, no, cap up magnet? What, is it Nimbus related? Wait, what? The fridge magnets Zoe showed Rumi first chapter. Oh, girl, I did not remember that. Girl, I did not. Okay, give me a second. Pulls out my trusty downloaded Two's Company. Magnets. Not that. Not that. Definitely not that. Oh my god, girl. Oh. Huh. Wait, I'm okay. They drank in relative silence after that. Rumi's eyes wandered around the kitchen, taking in how cozy it was. Warm lights, soft clinking sounds, familiar chaos. Then her gaze landed on the fridge, where at least a dozen weird magnets were stuck in scattered patterns. One looked like a cowboy hat, one was shaped like a pickle, and another was just a blurry printout of a cat's butt. Okay, cat's butt, yeah. Yeah, they sure were weird, all right. Zoe noticed her staring and perked up. Ah, yes, the shrine. Um, okay, that one Mira and I had to wrestle a grandma for it, limited edition, last one on the rack. Mira said, "Let her have it," and I said, "Over my dead body." So like, teeth prints, yeah. So they're like making a little addition to the magnet collection. I see, I see. That was like such a. I am glad it was a very like very subtle reference because I was feeling crazy. I was like, why do I not remember this? I was feeling insane. It's also been a year. I mean, that's not true. I reread the first few chapters like back in fall, but that's still a long time. Okay. Let me read the notes real quick. Your bill is looking pretty long, but I'll let you off the hook as long as you thank the chef. Yeah, that bill is long. That bill is about 600,000 pages. 600,000 words, not pages. Jesus Christ, can you imagine? 600,000 words. I just want to take a moment to say thank you. Truly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you to everyone who has been here throughout the journey. Whether you've been reading from the beginning, joined somewhere along the way, left comments, kudos, screamed with me, cried with me, laughed with me, or quietly followed along, I appreciate you more than I can properly put into words. Working on this fic over the past few months, it felt like forever, has meant so much to me. There have been ups and downs, highs and lows, moments where I was excited, nervous, emotional, overwhelmed, and everything in between. But getting to share the story with you all made every part of it worth it. Two's Company is officially over, and honestly, that feels so bittersweet. It's hard saying goodbye to a story that has been such a big part of my life for so long, but I'm also so grateful that I got to tell it, and even more grateful that you all chose to come along for the ride. This isn't really the end, though, it's just the beginning of something new. I'm so excited to keep writing, keep growing, and hopefully share another fic with all of you soon. Thank you for loving the story. Thank you for loving these characters. Thank you for being here. Signing out. Toss lots of sauce. As always, toodles. P.S. Next chapter is epilogue. Love you, Toss. Love you, Toss. And I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is and leave a comment, guys. Leave comments on the fix that you like. Love you, Toss. Choose company forever. Everyone leave a comment now. Everyone go and leave a comment. We need a ship name for Celine, Cindy, and Stacy. Cincy. But anyways, thank you so much for this toss. This is like tomorrow is the 1 year anniversary of Two's Company. Cincinnati. Toss. Tomorrow is the first anniversary of Two's Company. The chapter this came out was the 11-month anniversary of me starting to stream it. So we've been through a lot. We've been in 2 different countries. We've um we've been through a birthday. We've been through new jobs. So like it's very special. It's so special. And again, like I said, this is like the longest long fic that like I've seen through to the end. So first longest long fic, because like there are other long fics that I was reading at the time, like while it was coming out, that I like seen through to the end, but this is long. um but yeah, polymom tricks. Polymom tricks. That's cute. That's cute. Yeah. It's actually, yeah, it's been long. It's been really long. Um Again, Two's Company was my first polytrix fic. It was literally like I watched the movie. I was like, dang, that was a good movie. And then I watched it again like the next day. And then I went to Twitter like the day after it came out, 2 days after it came out. And there was like polytrix art. And I was like, dang, let's go. Let's freaking go. Let's go making the poly ship like this popular. Um and then like I went home and I was having a miserable time and I pulled up AO3 and I was like, what if? And I pulled up I just like searched the most bookmarked, and it was Two's Company, and I was like, well, this is long, but let's do it. And I'm glad I stuck through with it to the end. It's like genuinely I've been with it since, where was I when I think I started reading it when like 11 or 12 chapters were out, and like those first few chapters were coming out fast, so um yeah, dang. I've never read a fanfic before. That's crazy. I have read fanfic before, but like not any other polytrix. This was my first polytrix. Toss your mind is fascinating. Yeah, it feels like yesterday, but also it does feel like a year. I don't know. Time is weird. Time is so weird. I think my first polytrix was already warm like sunshine. Wow. LMFAO. Listen, good for you. Good for you. No shaming here. That's great. That is great. I have read it, obviously. Obviously. Anyways, sigh. I'm excited for the epilogue. That was really sweet. And come on, we all knew it was gonna end with a marriage proposal. We all knew. We all knew. We all knew. Oh, I wonder where Ray is at. Ray is probably like doing her shit. Oh, where Ray is at in Two's Company? Listen. My theory is that it wasn't Two's company that Ray read. My theory is give me that candy floss because of the RP accounts. Um, but who knows? Who knows? Ray is here somewhere. First fic I ever read was Fearless and Undefined by Luther Boyd. Yeah. Mm. I'm scared she's reading the Zoe one. I don't think she's reading when the sky breaks west. I don't think. I don't think, because like because she replied to demo being like, no, I love it, but I think she was referring to like demo's like tweets, like, and not the fanfic. Uh, that's my theory. Listen, I am almost certain that it was GTC, but anyway, that's not what we're talking about. We finished Two's Company. There's an epilogue coming, so I'm still like not counting it as like fully finished, um because epilogue should be fun. And I'm guessing the epilogue would be a bit shorter. So I'm wondering if I do a short stream or like if I do something with it. I don't know. Still waiting for a demo to drop. Selena and correspond. Toss. You have to drop the Cindy Celine to like encourage her to do it, okay? You have to drop the Cindy Celine. I'm also waiting. I'm like, listen, that's the Coraline fic is so good. Like, but Toss, we gotta encourage demo. We gotta we gotta encourage demo to like go on with the old woman Yuri. Oh, anyway. Oh, what song do I play? Oh, my back hurt. Celine keeps pulling everyone's moms. Have you seen her? Of course she is. Have you seen her? Of course she is. Oh. I'm gonna look through songs. I don't know. Wow. Play Losing Dogs. For sure. Okay. Your wish is my command. Not always. I haven't listened to this one in a while.